part
you
of why I
schedule
was,
somebody to come out and look, you know?
that was part of why I was, again, it was my understanding, but it was also why I was arguing to try to give them interpretation to make sure that this does in fact cover wood stoves as well, because the wood stove in my neighborhood that is the big problem, they don't store their wood properly.
Right, well, that's a
And so
different
if that's a
issue.
way to
Well,
get
that,
it.
you don't, you can just,
So,
That can
but this
just be,
gets to, do we
yeah.
need opacity if we have other ways?
That's what I.
well, that's what that,
That's
and
what I-
then we're back
that
to
was the
what I
question I had
reported
asked Jen
from
yesterday.
the guy.
And he said we still need opacity.
Well, he said that it's not, you can, the problem.
No, I think our code enforcement officer can say you're storing your wood improperly and you
No,
have
what
wet
he was
wood
saying-
or whatever,
what he
you
was
know,
saying
it's
is that the
a violation of the law.
Right, but what he was saying is just by the nature of these systems, even if you have clean dry wood, at times they're going to violate it.
I'm not debating that, but what we talked about, are there other things? And yes, there are. Why would you put them in the law if if they're not violations, if somebody's not doing it? Because if you have a person that just has a regular wood stove, and maybe they're not storing their wood properly, that could be the solution to the problem, you know? And you don't know, but, you know, I don't see why that can't be investigated, to see if are they doing other things that are creating, you know, a problem. So I have a feeling we're not gonna make an agreement on
Is
this
this all
tonight,
based
so.
on outdoor wood boilers, about their extension to burn time?
Well, this is the other, there were two things.
That's right.
This
We
was
didn't even get to that.
You're
part.
right,
This is the
Bob,
easy
that is the
question.
other thing.
Sure.
So the other thing was the
I
outdoor
think
wood
the
boiler.
chickens were a lot easier. Can we go back to that?
Extension of time. When we were talking the other day, Chris and I think, I know Jen was still mulling it over, talked about, you know, maybe a week to week extension that we can, and maybe come up with I think we came up with some dates that we would have start the cutoff, but.
Presently, yeah, it's the owners can request a 2-week extension at the beginning and at the end.
Mhm.
And as the changed law was actually something like a total of 2 months.
Right.
And the course of our conversation came to what if, I don't know that we had an agreement on the overall extension, but what if it was a 1-week extension that could be renewed
Right.
2 or possibly more times? That was not decided.
Well, I think Jen came up with a date that she
I
said
think
that.
we had
And have it tied to the
April
temperature.
30th.
That's what we
Right,
said
that-
that day.
Yeah,
And
we're
then,
talking about tying it to an average temperature,
Which
average daily.
right,
would
because
also help.
I think the concern was that, you know, this might be extended when you have like cool nights and warm days, and, you know, I'm concerned when you have people that this is their major heat source, and we have, you know, excessively cold days, and they can't heat their homes. So, you know, I think it's reasonable to say, I want to keep it on another week, because, you know, it's 30 degrees out.
Oh, wait a minute, stop right there.
Go ahead.
An outdoor wood boiler cannot be their only form of heat. It's not. And it's mostly people that have, so I'm gonna cave to, from what I've learned tonight, where I don't think we should even discuss anything about an extension or allowing an extension. You know what, we're talking nickels and dimes for these people that have it. This is the date, and this is the end date, and that's it. And that would be the middle of the road agreement with what I've heard tonight to satisfy everybody's needs, instead of, you know, trickling here, because I think also we're putting extra work onto our code enforcement officer. It's a deadline date and a deadline date. That's it, no more.
Well, I will say, I'd like to just go on record that over the last couple of years, we've had extremely cold springs, and you're not talking about the difference between here. Let me finish. All right. You know, I'm not talking about plugging in your space heater, you know, to warm the room up because it's cool. I'm talking about, you know, we had some real cold weather, and it's consistently been cold weather in the spring. You're not talking about, hey, you can just, you know, open the windows and straight outdoors at this time.
They also have oil.
But exactly, you turn the thermostat up, because if you're heating your hot water during the summer months, your outdoor wood boiler is not your main source of heat.
I don't know what each unit, each person has. There's, what is it, 15 or something like that, different users?
There were And there haven't been any new ones since we passed the law, and when we were told by Paul Costa, who's representing the group, that they all have alternative heating systems, which is agreed to the burn.
I think we're putting a lot of undue work on our employees and ourselves.
Yes.
I have the outdoor wood boiler. To my knowledge, the way the law was, was that there was a provision made that if there was exceptionally cold time, either before or after the season, that a request could be made, and the building department would grant it.
Right.
For
That's
two
what
weeks.
you-
To my knowledge, from what I remember, that's only happened once. The request was made and the building department granted it one time, I think, when it was exceptionally cold, either before or after the season, I don't remember which
Do
one.
you have a
It
backup
says-
heating system?
Yeah, of course.
It
But,
says 2-week increments, so they could
But
do
basic-
more than once. It's 2-week
No, it's
increments.
limited to just one.
I think it's
round
just
of
one.
2 weeks.
It says the code enforcement may extend these fee, unless this was the change.
Yeah,
Sorry,
the
I have
original
to
law was
here. I'm
definitely
sorry.
just 2 weeks.
2 weeks. But it was brought to my attention both, last spring and the spring before by the code enforcement officers that you see how cold it is right now? It's pretty cold.
But they can turn them over.
Okay.
What's the start date now that we have in place?
I think it's
November 1st.
November
for
1st.
3 days.
November 1st to March
31st.
31st.
Which is still cold after that. The month of April's cold.
I thought it was April 15th.
No.
You
That
can
would be the
extend it
extension.
to April 15th.
You have to ask right now.
If
to
you
April.
request it, and, that's the building department's discretion.
Right, okay, well,
Yeah, right now, you cannot operate a hydronic heater with the exception of traditional fuel, oil, and gas from April 1st through October 31st, unless such operating season is extended after appeal to the Rosendale Building Department, and only in the case of proven hardship during an unusually long and severe heating season. The maximum period for any such extension shall be 2 weeks prior to the start of the designated use period hearing, and/or 2 weeks after the end of such designated use period.
Well, I could see that outvoted on this.
I don't know one of these outdoor wood
Unless you
burn
have anything-
stoves that don't have an alternative heat, why?
So they
Turn
were
the
very
thermostat
clear
on.
at the time that they all had.
Right. Now, Mr. Costa had admitted that.
I think under this, we can send just one, as long as we designate, DEC
As the
as
other
trained
one.
as our
Well,
second
the other
one.
thing, we ran into a problem, I'll tell you one of the reasons this came up too. If you miss the training, you miss the training. So,
And you're uncertified until
Right.
you
Go
go
back.
back 6 months later.
right, but, that's what was happening, they're not able to keep up with it because there could be a day that somebody's sick, or somebody's, you gotta have another option, because they can't be the only way to handle this, or it's gotta be that you're
That's why
gonna,
we have.
when you say EDC,
doesn't always work.
I did have
Right.
something to note, though, because this came out in conversation, and I think it's quite notable, and I want the public to know that, in the course of discussing that initial proposed change of extending, that, Gene, you had brought up the idea of that series of 1-week extensions, whether we keep it at the no more than 2 or we extend it, we still debate that. But I felt to have the 1-week extensions tied to a temperature, a daytime temperature,
Yeah.
was actually more helpful for our code enforcement officers as well. We could ask them to get their opinion for sure. But the sense that I had in my correspondence with them is there are vagaries that they don't know how to enforce. So we can tighten it, it's more sensitive to the outdoor wood boiler owners in the sense that you're saying, hey, there's no refuting. If it's this temperature, you ask, you get it. It's more sensitive to our neighbors of wood boilers because, again, if it's really cold, they're not necessarily going to be out as much.
The hard
So,
part is
I
that.
felt that was an improvement
Yeah, I
potentially.
do too.
Yeah, the hard part is the temperature.
Yes.
And what you're gonna say is acceptable, because, and Cal, you can correct us if we're wrong, but you can't just turn the systems on and off, when it gets
Well,
cold, you know, once you start it up, you know, you've got it going. So, and the problem with those seasonal transition times is that you can get these nights that are really cold, but then you get these really warm days. And when the day is warm, I mean, we've seen 50-degree changes.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It
Right.
shouldn't be allowed
So-
during warm days.
Yeah.
So wait a minute, so now you're going back to making it a
No,
week or two
we're
weeks.
talking about what's in the existing law. Right now, already, this is not changing anything. What's in the existing law on the
No,
book.
Chris was making a different recommendation.
I was
Oh.
making the point that in the course of our conversation, I feel Jean would come up with a more sensitive way of considering
If
granting
it's 30
the
degrees,
extension.
if it's 30 degrees out, you know, then you can keep your stove on. If it's, you know, if it starts to get up in the 40 degrees, you know, after March
And it is,
31st.
it's when you have 3 or 4 cold nights and 3 or 4 or 5 cold days that you really start to feel it. I think since Mr. Ryder's here, and John's one, we don't recognize.
Sure.
or allow-
Yes, go ahead.
Jen said I could correct her, so I'm going to. The way it works is you set your outdoor boiler for a temperature. And there's a water jacket around that, a quantity of water that it maintains at that temperature. If it's colder out and your house is needing more heat, it has to run more often. If it's warmer out, it doesn't cycle as often. In other words, it just sits. So on mine, I can speak specifically about mine, the damper shuts, no air is going through, so it just sits. It can't emit much because it's not doing anything. If it's colder, the house needs more heat, it cycles more often, it'll do a little more. But it's not like, oh, it's on, so it's spewing stuff all the time. I think that's a misconception, and it's always a misconception, I think. It cycles on and off just like your oil burner will. It's just a question of when it's on, what's the quality of your wood, the way the fire is going, how much is it actually doing when it's cycling on and really putting out. And when it's not cycling, the damper is shut. Basically, mine, when it's shut and it's not cycling, you can look at it and there's a little tiny wisp. You can see it. So it's not like if it's on, it's everything, and if it's off, it's nothing. It's not like that.
But it has been on 50-degree days, you know, so I mean, I keep
Well,
them on.
because it will cycle to maintain its temperature, but the whole point is on those warmer days it won't cycle as often. It might sit all day if the house isn't calling for heat. It might sit there and do nothing all day.
It's my understanding you get the plume and it cycles back on, but if they're warmer days, you're getting the plume not during the warm part of the day.
When the temperature drops and the house is calling for heat. And it's just something, it's not an all or nothing.
The problem has been the.
Yeah,
the problem
I
is
see
the
it too.
number
I
of days.
I'm on Bloomingdale Road, so.
It's just like, it's,
Thank you.
The thing is, what happens when somebody new wants to come along and do it? Do they have to put 2 heating systems in? I mean, I don't know.
Well, they're two heating systems, and they're gonna have, I mean, you mean,
And they're
they're
gonna
gonna build
comply
a
with the
new
setbacks.
house?
You know, what happens when we start to when we start to allow newer ones that are better and more efficient? We're gonna have to address that because there's gonna come a time in the near future, I believe, where, especially with the state laws, they're gonna build them better and they're gonna be less of a chance of
I think at that
being an issue.
point,
We're gonna have to
at that
reevaluate.
point, yeah, I think at the point at which they are achieving the same level of emissions as, an EPA certified wood stove, which is not inconceivable,
What if somebody
technology
came?
progresses.
What if somebody came and said, now I've got the latest and greatest, and it's certified to be the same as a wood stove, and are we gonna have to hold those people to the same rules?
I think that.
Especially if they're building something new and they don't wanna have to put 2 heating systems in there?
I would say that the technology doesn't exist right now in this country, and so, until it does, you revise the law accordingly, but right now.
You mentioned that pellet option.
also-
The
so-
wood pellets, which is different from the, okay, and even they're
I've received everything from "this bugs me" to "I swear I will sue." And these aren't necessarily complaints that are then made public when there's the
Sure,
opportunity to do
no,
so.
I understand that.
The complaints that I have received are all in regards to installs that were done before the law that are not compliant with the law. And I'm not, in this case, picking on those people. I'm saying, but if somebody new comes on, your scenario, they're meeting the setbacks and the height that we require, you're not going to have problems that all of the complaints.
Right, but we
She's talking
would
about
have
the
the
heating
problem
season
about
of
having
the
heating
primary.
systems. You know, you're gonna tell them they have to turn it off on March 31st. And,
What I-
you know,
I
because
mean,
I've had
I
people
think
say
it-
to me, I'd like to get a outdoor, I'm like, well, you can't turn
They
it
have
on.
I
wood
think
stove
at
that's
that
not regulated,
point,
and that's what.
I mean, you could put something in right now if you wanted to
It's not-
say, if you could achieve, you know, between 2 and 4 grams per hour of particulate matter, same level as EPA wood stoves, then you don't have to have a burn season. I mean, you can put that in now and hope that one day they meet that, or you can just wait and amend the law when the technology's here. But it seems to me we should, you know,
How
wait
long
till it's
is-
standardized.
How long has this agenda been on our website?
Um,
I guess the point I'm getting, if there's,
It
that
just
many,
came out yesterday.
if there's that many concerns and stuff, I'm just surprised those people with all those concerns that are not here.
They have,
So-
they have, they come.
They were here, and they,
Okay, that's-
the agenda.
No, I hear what you're saying, and I
That's
agree.
all
And also, Bob, it was a holiday weekend, and we just got the agenda, like, yesterday.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at, since we represent the people, it's hard to know what to fight for and what to step away from unless we hear from the people and their concerns. I'm listening to everything I'm hearing tonight about the pollutant, stuff like that. Just trying to come with an easy remedy to satisfy everybody and forget about the extension and just go day to day, that's it.
Well,
And you have thermostats, we know everybody's got a backup source heater, and especially this year with the price of oil, is it really gonna kill you to turn the thermostat up and use a couple of gallons? I mean,
I'm
to
with
satisfy
you.
everybody.
And if it,
In
keep
terms,
it for that.
in terms of the capacity, I mean, I think that we did hear enough concern about public health that maybe if we go down to 1, if we can agree to go down to 1 this year and revisit it next year, if there are still no complaints and the complaints are difficult to enforce, we consider not doing it. But at this point, much as I want to respect what you're expressing, as well as the fact that it's difficult, even if we do have the complaints and they're going out, we got to be there right at the right moment, based on living across from 3 of them, I know
Yep.
this. These are legitimate questions that are being asked of why are we certifying it at all.
Well,
There are legitimate concerns we've heard though as well, that we want it, and so I think the compromise is 1, and DEC is our backup, and we revisit them. Be willing to revisit it.
I respect what you're saying, but I still want to go on record as saying I think this is a waste of money.
I keep forgetting to ask, what's David doing in the fire marshal? Present.
He's been trained just like the other, just like, the 2 of them have been trained in the past, but neither one of them are certified right now.
Like, they're not required as fire marshals.
Is that what you want to know?
Yeah.
I think he was asking the fire marshal.
Nobody gets trained unless you have a chemical plant in your neighborhood. Okay? That's what I'm trying to
Well,
say.
it's a big gray area.
You know,
Well, you know,
Rosendale has decided that they need
State
opacity
line.
school when the rest of the state doesn't, okay, unless you got a chemical plant. To me, that's a waste of money, and as my job as chief fiscal officer, I'm going on record as I think this is a waste of funds for this town to spend. When the state has somebody, whether he's available or not, that's the state's responsibility. It's a waste of our money to spend on opacity school for 15, 12 people that have outdoor wood boilers. So as far as I'm concerned, it's just not a good way to spend our funds. And we've
And
never
then-
had to use it. We've spent the money year after year, never had to use it. I want to go on record. You guys can agree with me or not, I'm going on record that I think this is a waste of funds.
Just to
Not to
clarify
say that I want to see pollution in the town. I just want to say this is not a good way to manage this issue,
I
okay?
do want to just clarify
totally
though, that
respect
it's not just for the dozen, it is applicable to any source.
Well, you know.
Yeah, but it's not happening, and it's a waste of money, and the guys are going there going, you know, people are going, what are you doing here, you know? The people running the school are saying, why are you here, okay? And our guys are going, we have a law, we have to come here. Do you have a chemical plant in your town? No. What do you have? We have outdoor wood boilers. Ha, ha, ha.
Well, all right, well, then what does the guy at DEC go to? What school
The
does he
same
go?
school.
Yeah, but then he doesn't laugh at it, I'm sure.
But
I mean,
because
that's-
that's his
Right, that's what his
jurisdiction.
job is to do it for
I
everybody.
That's his
actually don't
jurisdiction.
think they
Okay.
laugh. I
Right.
think if you go on the smoke school
They
website.
do. They laugh
Look.
at them. It's a joke.
Look, this,
Maybe
this-
We are a
It's the-
joke
it's
to
the only
them.
joke we have.
this is the thing. I think we're trying to venture ourselves into somebody else's jurisdiction. And on top of that, in the life that we live with all these electronic devices, if people really have problems, instead of telling somebody else because they don't want their name in lights, because I'm tired of having my name in lights, that's for darn sure, then they can take their cell phone and take a picture of their concern. They have millions of ways to get it in black and white proof, with nice colors too, instead of always getting on the phone, instead of running and having some, I have.
No, I just want to tell you, I asked about that. I asked if.
You asked
what
about cell
if
phones?
people just, no, what if people could just take pictures and send it to or share it, email it to the DEC people? And they said that the courts won't accept it.
Yeah, but there's also, there's other laws, like nuisance laws, okay? If there's a plume of smoke, you know, coming from your neighbor's yard and it's going into your backyard,
What is
your
it?
code enforcement officer can still violate
Right.
you
So
because
what
you're
is our-
creating a nuisance.
What is our
We don't have to
law
have
say
the
about-
opacity school to say, yes, he knows the difference between, smoke and not smoke, you know? I mean, come on.
Mary Lou, what is the, I think it does talk about trespass.
That's what I had in my
Talks
call
about-
once, was it was preventing somebody from enjoying their property.
There you go. There's the visible emission standard that you could violate, the operating season you could violate, prohibited fuels that you could violate.
See
All
the
heating
department,
appliances shall comply with all applicable laws, including but not limited to local regulations, so that's where all these other things would come in. Operators shall comply with manufacturer's guidelines for operation of all heating appliances.
And I will,
And you
point out
can't
too, that you don't have
operate-
to have visible smoke on a property.
No, I understand,
Does the
but
Salvage
typically if somebody's
Department
complaining
oversees this?
because they see an issue, it's
No,
gonna be
this is
because
our
there's a
law, so
plume coming
we
into
can
their
say, but
yard
there's also
or
a
into
state
their
law.
space. And then they're gonna call and say, I have a problem,
No.
if they
No,
call,
because
okay?
ours is
No,
stricter
no,
than
the
the state.
idea
And
is
we
that
can make it
if
stricter.
there is 20% opacity for the level of PFAS.
I understand, Jen, but how are your code enforcement officers gonna know to go check that?
Well, it's in the section of the law.
Right, but they're not gonna know that there's a problem unless somebody says there's a problem. And the only person that's qualified to know the problem is the guy who's gone to Opassy school. So that's kind of a catch-22.
Right, but part of their job in their day is driving around. I mean, they are out.
Oh, if they saw it, they saw it.
Right.
You know, I would tell you they probably do not agree that they need to, you know, what the opacity school says is if you don't keep coming for training, your eyes don't remember how to identify opacity, the opacity issue. So that's why they have to keep coming back. So, you know, but I don't think that they agree with that. I think that they feel that they would be able to identify it. But, you know, you've got, let's face it, the guidelines for going to opacity school are based on, you know, not on outdoor wood boilers, are based on people that have chemical plants or factories in their town, where the code enforcement officer might every day have to look at that because that's part of his duties on a daily basis, because you have, you know, if there was a plume coming out of the factory, you could shut down a whole city, you know. So that's a bigger
So-
issue, and that's the difference between why we're sending our people for training and what 99% of the rest of them are sending them.
So, the original intent was, you know, there were a lot of complaints about the existing boilers. The law, and there were a lot of calls for banning them in the town.
Yep.
And instead, you know, we went a different route, and we regulated emissions for new ones, and put in incorporated 3 provisions, grandfathering in existing units, but incorporating 3 provisions that would apply to them to at least try to limit the harm done to neighbors, and that was the stack height, raising the stacks, enforcing opacity standards, because the complaints were coming because people were complaining to the DEC that the DEC didn't have enough staff to come and enforce it. So it wasn't, so the source of the complaints weren't being addressed. And then the third one was the burn season. By
Right.
limiting the burn season, you're going to limit the amount of.
Right, so in the beginning, all of those things needed to be addressed, and they were. And at some point, everybody that had an outdoor wood boiler was made to comply with those rules. So now you have a long period of time that's gone on where there has not been a need for the opacity to be for the opacity's training to be used. And I have to question whether it's a good use of the spending of the money. So that's my question. Is it really make sense to spend the money on opacity school when it's not, when everybody that has an outdoor wood boiler has been made to comply, and now you have a situation where years are going by where code enforcement officer has never had to go and check opacity, then,
Right, no, that's not true, because I
Okay.
know of 2 instances in which Dave received a call
Okay.
and went to a site.
How long
And in
ago?
one case,
How long
one
ago?
was a year ago, last year,
Okay.
and I can't remember, the one was like 3 years before that.
And were they for the outdoor wood
But,
boilers?
yeah,
Okay.
and in the one instance, it was the problem that Dave wasn't there when the call came in, and then by the time he got there later, there was nothing to measure because
Mhm.
the plume was gone.
Right.
So, and
And
then,
it was
and the
because
other
was it
came-
because they were burning outside the season?
No, I mean, it was just, it was like a gray, moistury day, and it was all trapped, in the air, molecules hanging low.
Right.
The other one was on Springtown, and the person originally called me, and I'm like, this is not my job, you have to call the code enforcement officer. But she did then report to me that David called me back and said, well, I called him and he went down and he talked to the guy and whatever, I worked it out. But so there have been calls, it's just, I don't know how many, but I know of at least a couple. To say there was none is not accurate.
Right, but this is the other situation, when I feel like you've confirmed my argument, because what happened? He was able to go to those places, resolve the problem.
Yeah,
and he
go to
didn't need,
court.
he didn't need to go to court, he didn't need opacity school.
Well, he didn't resolve the one, this is always the problem.
Well, it's
Again,
gonna be the
going
problem no
back-
matter what.
Exactly.
So you're
How
gonna go
many do
forward,
we
it's
have?
still gonna be a problem.
How many do we have?
Well,
In our whole town that we have jurisdiction, we have 12?
Right, but keep in mind that that the opacity was also that including that provision was also to satisfy the outdoor wood boiler owner's concern that pollution from any smoky devices would be,
yeah, but
controlled.
I don't
So-
think that you need opacity trained code enforcement officers to handle those kinds of things. That's how I feel about it, and, so if everybody disagrees, I'm not gonna get my way, but I strongly feel that it's a waste of money. And, I don't think opacity school has paid off, hasn't gotten anything back for it. And that's, doesn't mean that people aren't gonna have enforcement for, breaking the law. And, if there is a complaint, they can still take action, the way I look at it, without having that training.
That's how I
It's
feel.
only when you're gonna go to court, or you have somebody fighting you, that you're gonna have to have opacity school.
That's
Because
how I
most of
feel.
the time, the code enforcement shows up and says, you have a problem, you haven't, you've got smoke, you're using wet wood, you've got smoke coming out that, is a problem. People, most of the time, they realize they've done something, they've gotta try to do something to correct it. And if they fight you on it, you're gonna have a lawsuit that's not gonna take a week to fix. It's gonna take a long time, right, to fix that.
Good, we'll be going back on that.
Yep.
Good point.
So I have a feeling we're not gonna come to a consensus tonight.
If I am indeed the swing vote,
Mhm.
at this point, I'm only prepared to go to Opacity School, but I recognize the very credible concerns that you have,
Mhm.
and I would personally caution that I would vote to support one with the caveat of use it or lose it. If a year from now, we do not yet have anybody having utilized their training at Opacity School for a complaint, then I would go with the actions don't support the comments. But
Well, I
right now,
appreciate
what I
that.
heard at the public hearing, I feel I need to stand by.
Well, the thing that concerned me about some of the comments is I think people felt that if we didn't have this, it meant that we couldn't stop people from, doing something we shouldn't be doing. And I'm not in agreement with that. They were complaining because they got fearful that if we didn't have this Opacity School, people were going to be able to, all of a sudden start doing things improperly. And I don't think that that's the case. I still think we can enforce the law. But, I appreciate what you said, and, does the board want to take that action? Let's do a straw
Well, you know what,
poll.
I got one quick question before you do. In the years that we paid these people to go for their license to El Paso, how many times have they been called upon to utilize
Well,
it?
Jen says twice that she knows of. The last time, I haven't talked to them about
Not
it
just in
recently.
my personal
Yeah.
experience.
I mean,
know-
they've complained to me that it's a waste of time and money. That's what they've told me over and over. It's a waste of time and money. I'm telling you, when I talk to you about what's being said when they go to school, it's the conversation they've had with me about going to school, and they're like,
They also didn't support the law in the first place.
I mean, we have 12 of these,
Should go on record. as saying
12.
they were-
If there is an issue, I mean, people are gonna complain, and that's when you would go to DEC. I'm just making sure there's no personal vendettas going on here with only 12.
I think there's people that, if it's in their neighborhood, they're gonna feel more strongly about
So,
it, there's
and-
no
Well, they need
question.
to,
But I just wanna,
Bob, I
people,
explained the whole rationale of where it came from tonight. I've explained it to you very clearly where this came from, and it came out of discussions with outdoor wood boiler owners or the representatives of the owners of outdoor wood boilers when this law was being moved.
Right.
That this opacity standard was something that they also wanted. So
well, they thought they maybe.
that's where it came
Right.
out of originally.
I
But,
hear you.
and the comments that were being made at the public hearing, it was about, I'm not gonna get protected because the we won't have opacity training. And, I mean, when you have a situation where years have gone by and they're not really using that training, then I don't think that that's an argument. If there's a complaint, they're taking care of the complaint. But that doesn't mean that the Opacity School is making a difference. The only time it's gonna make a difference is if we have somebody that isn't cooperative and we have to go to court.
I would support Kristen's recommendation.
What's that?
Would you support going down to one person now and revisiting in a year?
My thinking is, save our money, we got 12 of them, but I will back up a start date and an end date with no flexibility.
I get that.
That's it.
I can see that nobody wants to back me on that one, but, is that where everybody's at on that?
Yeah.
You too, right, Chris?
I got that way.
I'm more negotiable on spring than fall,
I
because I
agree.
think once it's up, it's up.
I agree.
But,
Right.
I know.
I mean, I think-
Personally, I would like to get rid of them.
Yeah.
But I feel that as a council person at this level, the laws that we have in town and above us, I feel
think-
fairly constrained by the support.
And
that
I think the argument, it's occurred right here, that alternative needs to exist is,
yeah.
so the neighbors don't have a choice,
Right.
but the owners do. And I think that is the situation.
So I'm gonna make a motion that we do not change the time, but that we limit our opacity training 1 year, and to revisit this next year at this time to evaluate whether we need to continue doing DOA master training.
No, I don't have a vote, can I offer a suggestion?
Yeah.
You might want to start reevaluating it in April. So it's after the end of,
Okay.
because
Okay, get the heating
that's
system.
when the heating systems will
Okay,
be
so we'll
shut
look-
off,
We'll look at it.
and you can look at the heating season.
Sure.
And give you all summer to come up with something before we start again
Good
in
point.
cold
I'll
season.
amend it to that then. Chris, do you want to second it?
Sure. I'll second that.
Thank you. Roll call, Councilman James?
Yes.
Councilman Matthews?
Yes.
Councilman Kozlowski?
Yes.
Councilman Ryan?
Yes.
Supervisor Wall? Yes.
Okay, so we don't actually have to change the law because that's allowed in there now that
Okay.
he's a code enforcement officer, plus someone else who's trained on the list and that can
We
be
could just say
safe.
AC. Okay, can I make a suggestion, or I want to see how the board feels about this. Now, Jen brought up this idea of the programs that are in place for replacing outdoor wood boilers and the kind of funding and grants. I would make a recommendation that we have our environmental commission explore the ways that they can assist homeowners that do have outdoor wood boilers and really put a program in place to help them find out how to get the grants and the funding to upgrade to a better system.
But really the focus should be on the pellet boilers.
Whatever it is, they
Right.
should explore.
Well, there are different kinds, but those are the most pellet.
The thing is, what I'm talking about is an education and an assistant program to be able to.
I think what's clear to me right now, that most people have these wood burning stove is to save money because they get wood free or they have access to wood.
Sure.
So with that being
Or
said,
they've always grown up and wood has been the source of heat that they've learned to deal with.
okay, so, but let me finish.
Yeah,
To try to get these people to go from wood to pellet,
yeah.
then they might as well just continue to burn oil and cut out all of the
Right.
maintenance and
That's
Well,
everything.
the
true.
wood pellets are,
But you
it's
still
a
have to-
third of the cost of.
Of what?
I get free wood, I'm not gonna buy a pellet stove.
Exactly.
And
And
I had an opportunity to buy a pellet stove when I put my wood stove in.
why would you
Why
go
would I
through
do
the
that?
hassle of
I go,
pellets
I
if
can
you're
get
gonna buy the
wood.
pellets
Right?
and stop us the oil? You can sit in the window with a cup of coffee watching the oil man put the oil in your tank. Why would you wanna go fiddle fart around with pellets that you have to buy too in
Get
bags?
that in a minute, fiddle part.
I understand that
Just
it
because
should be
it's,
part of the exploration, I
it's-
agree, but,
it's-
but I still think.
Is in other words,
We're gonna put that in the code.
All right,
Good.
all right,
Yeah, no,
moving
it's-
on,
It's
gang.
renewable and it's less costly.
It's
all
noted,
that way. I just-
supervisor noted, and then we'll relate to the environmental.
All right, I think, here's a perfect example of a way that the town board can, ask a commission to do a job that is really important to this board, just to explore something that's important to this board. And we could give them a directive if you want to, we could make a motion. If you want to just
I think
suggest
we
it.
could
Let's
just-
ask.
Yeah.
I think that's.
Well, I think it's a good project for them, and I'd love to see them take that under their wing. All right, I think we exhausted that enough.
Yep, we're gonna be here
Hey,
until
can I call in
1
work,
o'clock.
tell them I'm gonna be late?
Huh?
Can I call work and tell them I'm gonna be late?
Yes, you can. I might do that. Well, the other's gonna be quick, because they're stuff we all know about, and we're just gonna do it.
Yeah.
Number 6.
Thank you, Mandy.
I don't even know where my agenda is anymore.
You ate it? Can you go?
I burned it.
The consent to change from last week's.
I had
poll.
2 of them. No, I
All right, I lost place. You sure that's number 6?
Yep.
had. Well, which one are we on now?
It's a resolution to consent to change of control, that's for the Time Warner Cable franchise. Whereas Time Warner Cable Northeast LLC franchise is duly authorized holder of a franchise is amended to date authorizing franchisee to operate and maintain a cable system to serve town of Rosendale. Franchisee authority. Whereas on May 23rd, 2015, Charter Charter Communications, Inc., along with the subsidiary and the charter entered into agreement with Time Warner Cable, the ultimate parent company of the franchisee. Advanced Newhouse Partnership and Liberty Broadband Corporation in order to merge with TWC, the ultimate parent of the franchisee. Whereas TWC will merge into subsidiary of New Chapter, and whereas Charter Communications will merge with subsidiary of New Chapter, Charter, and New Charter will assume the name Charter Communications, Inc. Whereas the ultimate control of franchisee will have transferred to Charter, and whereas Charter has filed an FCC Form 394 with the Franchise Authority, and whereas the Franchise Authority has considered the application and approves the transaction. Now therefore be resolved by the Franchisee Authority as follows. Foregoing recitals are approved and incorporated herein by reference. 1, the Franchisee Authority consents to the transaction. 2, the Franchisee Authority confirms that the franchisee is valid and outstanding in full force and effect, and there are no defaults under the franchisee. Subject to compliance with the terms of this resolution, all action necessary to approve the change of control of the franchisee to Charter has been duly and validly taken. Charter or franchisee may assign, transfer, or transfer control of its assets, including the franchisee, provided that such assignment, transfer, or transfer of control is to an entity directly or indirectly controlled by, or under common control with Charter, restructure debt, or change the ownership of interest among existing equity participants in Charter. Pledge or grant a security interest to any lender of Charter's assets, including but not limited to the franchisee, or of interest in Charter for purposes of securing any indebtedness, and sell equity interests in Charter for any of Charter's affiliates. Or upon closing of the transaction, franchisee shall remain bound by the lawful terms and conditions of the franchisee. 5, the resolution shall be deemed effective upon adoption. 6, the resolution shall have the force of a continuing agreement with franchisee. The Franchise Authority shall not amend or otherwise alter this resolution without the consent of the franchisee and Charter.
Wow.
I'll second that.
What he said.
Roll call, Councilman Hughes.
Yes.
Councilman Nestor.
Yes.
Councilman Swati.
Yes.
Councilman Knight.
Yes.
Supervisor Wall.
Yes.
That's all.
Does not come up for a new franchise agreement. We'll just have to stick with the old franchise.
Right, that's just substituting their,
Darn,
their merge.
I want more money.
Reminds me of those commercials that they've been showing about, like,
Okay.
new companies coming in and they smell.
Yep. All right. So the next one is Resolution 10/2015. 7, thank you. Schedule public hearing to consider a tax cap override local law, whereas the event of unforeseen cost overruns which may be associated with meeting contractual obligations, bond payments, improving facilities, funding health insurance expenses, etc. It is necessary to have a local law in effect in order to override New York State mandated tax cap. And whereas the town of Rosendale is empowered to enact such local law pursuant to subdivision 5 of General Municipal Law 3C, which expressly authorizes the town board to override the tax levy limit by the adoption of such local law and subsequent passage of a resolution approved by a vote of 60% of the town board. And now therefore resolved, the town board of the town of Rosendale hereby schedules a public hearing on November 4th, 2015, immediately following the public hearing for the 2016 preliminary budget at the Rondette Municipal Center at 1915 Lucas Avenue, Cottington, New York, 12419, to consider the advisability of adopting such local law. And be it further resolved that a copy of this proposed local law shall be made available by the town clerk during business hours. Be further resolved that the town clerk of the town of Rosendale is hereby directed and authorized to legally advertise same.
You're here. I'll second that.
Roll call, Councilman Hughes.
Yes.
Councilman Nestor.
Yes.
Councilman Swati.
Yes.
Councilman Knight.
Yes.
Supervisor Wall.
Yes. I just want to remind you guys that I'm waiting to hear if any of you want to meet with me to go over the budget.
Yeah, we do, but we have some
You
time,
need to,
right?
yeah, but you need to get, we need to make changes. It can be after the, because this preliminary, this can become the preliminary budget. But I want to have an idea. It takes me a long time to do all this. So if everybody wants to meet with me before we adopt the budget, I want to be able to have time to
Yeah.
really look at it. Okay?
I've been so far meeting with my liaison departments.
Okay.
Yeah, I need to meet with everybody.
All right. scheduling a public hearing for the 2016 Height Falls Water District budget. Be it resolved that the town board of the town of Rosendale hereby schedules a public hearing on November 4th, 2015 at 7 p.m. at the Rosendale Municipal Center at 1915 Lucas Avenue, Cuyahoga, New York, 12419, to consider the advisability of adopting the 2016 budget for the Height Falls Water District. Be further resolved, the town clerk of the town of Rosendale is hereby directed and authorized to legally advertise same.
I'll second that.
Roll vote, Councilman Hughes.
Yes.
Councilman Nestor.
Yes.
Councilman Wozzachowski.
Yes.
Councilman Ryan.
Yes.
Supervisor Wilt.
Yes, but I just realized something.
Okay.
Mary Lou, we have to do the tax cap first, right? Does it matter if the
Well,
public
this is just
hearing is-
scheduling the public
So that
hearing.
doesn't
It's
matter,
the
okay.
order of voting
When we
that
do
will
the
matter.
voting, yes, yes, okay, I'm sorry, who seconded that?
I did.
Councilman Rob.
I would say yes.
Mr. Ryan.
And 10,
You can't hear.
2015, 9,
Say whatever you want to.
accepting the 2016 tentative budget as the 2016 preliminary budget and to set the public hearing on said budget. Whereas the town clerk has presented the 2016 tentative budget proposal to the town board for review, whereas the town board has reviewed and discussed the tentative budget proposal for 2016 has concluded that it should be adopted as the town's preliminary budget for 2016, and that the public hearing on said budget should be scheduled for November 4th, 2015. Now therefore be it resolved, the town board hereby adopts the proposed tentative budget as a preliminary budget for the town of Rosendale for 2016. Copies of the preliminary budget are available for the town clerk's office for public review. Town board of the town of Rosendale hereby schedules a public hearing on November 4th, 2015, immediately following the public hearing for Height Falls Water District of the Rosendale Municipal Center, 1915 Lucas Avenue, Cottington, New York, 12419, to consider the advisability of adopting the 2016 budget. Be further resolved that the town clerk of the town of Rosendale is hereby directed and authorized to legally advertise same.
So, I would second, but can we just discuss it for a moment?
Yes, you may.
Since we haven't, I don't think we have discussed it, does it matter?
How about this? Would you all like me to present the tentative budget as the preliminary budget?
That we
Yeah.
can further.
Yes.
Right,
we
then
can
you have a
Okay.
public
further
hearing
that.
on that, and
Then
then
we're
you can
gonna
make
discuss.
changes.
Then that's the
Okay.
final budget you approve, so we can still make changes.
I feel
You
we covered the bases now.
Good.
Who's seconding?
I'll second
I've already.
Yes, you
said-
have,
Oh,
right.
okay.
Roll vote, Councilman Hughes.
Yes.
Councilman Nestor.
Yeah.
Councilman Wozzachowski.
Yes.
Councilman Ryan.
Yes.
Supervisor Wilt.
Yes.
Was that this number?
No.
9?
I'm sorry.
Going back to
Well,
number
that's
one
about what
on
I'm
our-
bringing, right?
All right.
On our
Number 10,
budget.
10, 2015, 10.
Look at the number.
To hold a public hearing for the Bloomington Fire Protection District, whereas the town board of the town of Rosendale has been invited to review the proposed contract and look over equipment in Bloomington Fire Company is available for fire protection, medical emergencies, other types of emergency calls. Whereas the town of Rosendale is looking to extend their contract with Bloomington Fire District Department Incorporated from January 1st, 2016 to December 31st, 2016. Now therefore be resolved, the town board of the town of Rosendale hereby schedules a public hearing for 7 p.m. on October 26, 2015, for Bloomington Fire Company, Inc., located at Taylor Street, Bloomington, New York, 12411. Mary Lou, I just have a question. For the extension of the contract, does that need to say that it's a joint meeting?
No.
Okay.
I second that.
So does that?
Because they're two separate contracts.
Yes,
So
that's
Town
what I
of
thought.
Gloucester will have one and we'll have one.
So this one, but this is still gonna happen at that time?
Yeah, there's gonna be two meetings,
There's gonna
two
be-
public hearings. We gave you the paperwork for that.
I know,
remember?
I understand, and
Okay, you gave
She
them
wrote-
both,
she
you
said to
did
me,
both of them though.
Which ones?
you showed me already.
Yeah, there's gonna be two public hearings, one for the creating of the fire district, the other is to extend the contract for 1 year.
Okay. All right. Roll vote, Councilman Hughes.
Yes.
Councilman Nestor.
Yes.
Councilman Wozzachowski.
Yes.
Councilman Ryan.
Yes.
Supervisor Wilt.
Yes. And the next one is 10, 2015, 11. Resolution to consider the establishment of a fire district pursuant to Article 11 of the town law. Where the town of Rosendale of contracts with the Bloomington Fire Company, Inc. to provide fire and emergency services to the Bloomington Fire Protection District in the town of Rosendale. And whereas pursuant to Article 11 of the town law of the state of New York, the towns are permitted to establish fire districts separately with contiguous towns. And whereas it appears to the town board of the town of Rosendale that the proposed establishment of a fire district covering the current Bloomington Fire Protection District in the towns of Ulster and Rosendale, respectively, would be in the public interest. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Rosendale proposes that pursuant to town law, section 170, a joint public hearing be conducted by the town board of the town of Rosendale with the town board of the town of Ulster to hear all persons interested in the establishment of a fire district at a date, time, and location. Oh no, that's going to change. On October 26th at 7 p.m.
Right.
And be further resolved, notice for such public hearing be published in accordance with town law, section 171. And be further resolved, the town board of the town of Rosendale directs the town clerk to schedule a joint public hearing with the town board of the town of Ulster on October 26, 2015, for the joint public hearing in conformance with the law, and to prepare and publish such all notices of the joint public hearing as may be required by law. Be it further resolved, the town board of the town of Rosendale directs the town clerk to schedule a special meeting of the town board of the town of Rosendale to commence immediately before the public hearing and thereafter being adjourned for the purpose of conducting the joint public hearing, and then reconvene after the conclusion of the public hearing for the purpose of considering the matters raised at the joint public hearing, including whether or not it is in the public interest to establish such fire district, as well as many other matters the town board chooses to entertain. The town clerk is further directed to prepare and publish all such notices of the special meeting as detached.
I second that.
Did you understand?
We're having a hearing.
Roll
Well,
call.
And a special meeting.
Councilman Hughes,
Yes.
Councilman Metzger,
Yes.
Councilman Kozlowski,
Yes.
Councilman Ryan,
Yes.
Supervisor Ross.
Yes. And we're doing it with capital.
Yes. How exciting.
All those people sit up front.
Where are we going?
I don't know. What did I say this was, 11?
This is going to be 12.
This-
coming
Yeah,
up
that,
to
we
12.
just did 11, this is 12.
All right, the Halloween curfew. Had some complaints, are we still okay with 9:30?
Yes.
I got it.
Oh,
Yeah. They wanted it, what,
Clerk's office
earlier?
received one complaint?
They think Christmas days is too crowded and they can't get up and then hand out candy, so it's just they turn the lights off and on.
That's what my mother does. She just turns the lights off and goes to
So
bed.
she said she was more.
When you run out of candy, you turn the
That's
light
what
off.
she
That's
does.
what she said. I told her, and then she had other concerns, and then I said, you know,
I mean, I understand it's hard in there because I know my mom, they would get totally lost.
I honestly go down Main Street.
Is they had a concerns or somebody had a concern?
Well, I had one person.
Well, you know, they could post their own signs open space, like right at the entrance.
I
I
think
mean-
if they're not doing trick or treating, they should just put a little sign on the door saying, sorry, we're not participating.
No,
Yeah,
that's asking for trouble.
You could just, you just
Don't
don't
do that.
answer the
Those
door.
kids who came at 4 o'clock.
That's HR.
You just don't answer the door.
So what was their
You turn the light
initial
off, people
problem? What's their
understand, you
problem?
move back.
She said she's
9:30
an
is too
elderly lady and getting up and down.
Yeah.
There's over, I think she said they handed out 600 candies last year and he's getting higher. And she said she enjoys the holiday, but she thinks 9:30 is excessive to be handing out candy.
What time did she think?
She told me 8 o'clock.
That's, we have had, you know, the only time we've done 9:30 is when it's a weekend.
And that's
Nine
what I told her.
And, you know, Friday and Saturday nights is when we've said.
You know, the
9:30.
thing is, if you go back in history, there hasn't been any problems. The police haven't reported anything as a problem. And then there's a lot of people that put a lot of time into decorating their house, doing all of this stuff for the kids to see it,
Yeah.
you know?
I can go either way, I'm okay with whatever.
How
you guys
about
want
I
to
say
9
keep it.
o'clock?
You know what, I'm gonna stay with
Every-
9:30.
Me too.
Me too.
Because
It's a Saturday night.
if we had problems in the past, I say yes, let's
do. All right,
shorten it.
enough talk about
It's all
Halloween.
right. No.
But it's an annual tradition.
I know, it always takes longer than half the things you talk about. All right, Halloween curfew, whereas the town of Rosendale desires to protect the health, safety, and well-being of its citizens, be it resolved that the curfew of 9:30 p.m. for youth under 18 years of age to be strictly enforced hereby in effect for Halloween, October 31st, 2015. Do we want to make an exception on the
youth commission, yeah.
except that, except for
the
the,
youth center, let's
be
see,
it further resolved
that an exception will be granted to youth center?
that youths under 18 may attend the youth center Halloween program at the youth center. With the understanding that they will be escorted home by an adult.
You want to make that adult a certain age?
19
Or do
years
you
or
want the
older.
19-year-olds to be able to make?
Let's say adults over 21. You could say parent or guardian, if they're not 18, they're not, yeah.
Right, or they might be going with somebody else's
Parent or
parent.
guardian's gonna send
And 21-year-old.
Parents.
Yeah.
Out there in the world. Yeah.
Why don't we say, with the youth center with them, understanding they escorted directly home. How's that?
Well, they can't stop at the store.
I was gonna say, can they go to their friend's house?
They
No.
can
Stay
go to
overnight?
Stewart's
No.
and get some ice
No.
cream.
Yeah.
stop at Go Do Not collect $200.
So
All
by
right, you wanna
passing
say
that,
escorted,
24-year-old.
I mean, what are we gonna say? You gotta say home. What are you gonna say?
I don't know if we gotta say home.
To residents.
Yeah, you can't, yeah, because when the police drive around, they see a kid out after 9:30, they'll say, what are you doing?
Oh, no, but I
You
mean-
have, you're supposed
No,
to be
but-
home by
but
now.
But you say that they can't be out on the public streets or
Right.
public
Okay,
parks,
understanding.
other than the rec
Oh my
center,
God, you people.
Yeah.
unless
We want them
accompanied
home.
by-
I
Tucked
know,
in
I
on
know.
Halloween.
Home is ideal,
I
yeah.
like the chickens.
All right, so we'll say, be it further resolved that the youth under 18 may attend the youth center for the Halloween program at the youth center with the understanding they are escorted home, or are escorted where? What am I saying?
Directly
Do you
home.
even,
Huh?
do you even
Directly
need
to a
anything?
resident, to.
When you say it's
their resident.
9:30, do you say if you're at somebody's house, you have to get a ride home?
Yes.
You know, you say it's
Time to go.
9:30, with the exception of the,
Youth center
The
program.
youth center
Period. Till 11
Do you want to
o'clock.
say just that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah. And it goes until 11,
Yeah.
right?
No, because then the whole problem is people, we don't want them out and
Alright.
about, that's the problem. So
Well, how
9:30,
about-
they can only be at the youth center if they're out past 9:30, they can't be out and about.
Directly inside.
Can't the youth center just with their stuff put out
They're inside.
When the party, you know, when you're picked up from the party, you have to be accompanied by an adult.
Yes.
So
He's
why
already
don't we
been
go
told
back
they either have
the-
to escort them home with the van, or they have to be
Right,
picked up by the
so
adult.
that's a
All right,
a
all
rule of
right,
the
I see
party.
what you're saying.
It doesn't
Okay.
have to be a
Youth
resolution.
understand me, you.
How about, do not pass go, do not collect $200?
All right, now I don't know what to write. All right, be further resolved, that the youth under 18 may attend the youth program at the youth
Period.
center. Okay. All right,
At the youth center.
I hope you're writing this down, because we
Yeah.
can't do it,
Yeah.
so.
all right.
They attend the youth center Halloween program.
All right. Who's seconding?
I'll second it.
Roll vote?
But just to be clear, if you're 20, you can keep trick or treating, right?
That's right. 18-year-old can trick or treat.
Everybody's gonna have the lights off by then.
I don't do any trick or treating, so.
I know that.
Everybody from her neighborhood goes to